Okay, 276, what we've had so far is as follows, that a function is one small block of instructions that does one small, very specific job for a program. That's 6.1 and 6.2. 6.3 is we can define that function either before and after our main if we use a function prototype, or if we just go ahead and define the whole thing, we would do that before main. And the whole idea behind all of that is as C++ is doing its compilation time stack, top to bottom, left to right, in that order exclusively with the code that we have provided, what ends up happening is C++ has to know where that code is, the return type of a function, any parameters. So a parameter is what that function receives, and then the body of that function, the work, how it is that C++ is going to do the work that that function wants to execute. Now, functions can either, like we have seen, receive nothing from the rest of the portions of our application that are running, or it can receive stuff. So there's a couple of things here to note, and they will drive some of you crazy for a little while, and they will drive others of you crazy for a long while. We just kind of have to deal with that. Remember that when we are setting up our functions, anything that we pass to, or anything rather that we receive as our function, anything that we receive is called a parameter. Anything that we pass to it is called an argument. So, why do we have two names for what will amount to similar things? So, if you think about making a payment, they are debits and credits, right? So, if I receive um, a deposit in my bank account, I have received a debit transaction. When I pay out, it is a credit transaction. So minus and plus, minus and plus. So wherever my payment goes to, they receive money, right? So that means while my account is going down, their account is going up. So it is like an acknowledgement that each one of these interactions has two parties to it. There's the location where a function is being called, and there is the location where the function is doing its work. We can refer to those differently. We will see that in our examples here. So this starts on page 317, where we have functions and arguments. So first and foremost, we have the idea now of a parameter. So we can see that here with our display value function. So this time around, display value is a void function still. It is display value, my mistake. Display value as opposed to display message, so I guess it is a different function. Display value does not return anything, so it is still a void type. However, this time you'll notice that it receives an integer, so it does have a parameter list that is int num. What this tells C++ is as follows. Whatever data it is, so if I'm holding a basket of data from inside of, let's say, main, and I'm going to pass this basket of data to display values, C++ needs to know, what kind of data are you passing me in that basket? Oh, it's a integer type. Okay, I'm going to refer to this as num. So num, that is what's happening here that we see here on 317 in the function definition. So all we're saying is that our function will not return anything. That's its void type. It is called display values, and it receives its parameter list. is int, which we refer to from here on out as num. Then if you look inside of the function body, you can see I am displaying the value of num is, and then, I insert the num variable there, and whatever value is stored in the num variable is displayed, in this case, to my output window. So now let's look at how this works as far as the code is concerned in program 6-6. And this is evidently still on page 317. So first and foremost, we have our function prototype. That is on line number 6. Remember, a prototype does not include the function body. It just includes the function return type, in this case it's void, the function name, display value, and the parameter, in this case it's just parameter type. So here, because we have a function prototype, I just have to tell C++, hey, this takes an int. And for now, that is okay. So next, what will happen is here inside of main. So that's starting on line number 8 and going to line number 14. On line number, I'm going to skip number 10 because it just says I'm sending 5, that number, I believe. Yeah, 5 to display value. What happens here is inside of line number 11, you see my function call. So that is where I'm going to tell C++, hey, this next line, go to display value and pass to it. So this is an argument now. So from inside of main, an argument. This argument is the value 5. Now, we could do this in another way and declare int num equals 5. And in that case, what I could do is pass num to my display value function. We will see this happen both ways in the code samples later on. So here on line number 11, here on line number 11, we can pass it a value. We are passing it a value of 5. So what happens on line number 11 is, okay, C++ knows it has an argument. This argument is literally the number 5. So then we go to where the display value function is located. The function itself is really not located on line number 6. The function itself, and C++ will know this, is located down here on line number 21. 21 takes the argument 5, and now it's a parameter. So it's a parameter here where my function is located. And from here on out, I can refer to that by its variable name, which is int num. So you can see on line number 21, void, it still has the same display type. Display value, it still has the same name. And inside of its parameter list, so the parens, it has the type. But this time, we have a type, int, and its variable name that we're going to refer to it as. In this case, it's num. So inside of the body of display value, I have cout, the value is, and then num, the way we have been doing this, structurally, concrete sequentially, top to bottom, left to right, in that order exclusively, all the way back to chapter 1. So again, and we will not take we will for a little while, I do apologize, that is true, but we will not forevermore follow what C++ is doing here in quite as painful a way. So after that function is called and we pass the arguments, that void function does what it's supposed to do. It displays the value is and the number 5. So when this is done, C++ knows it's done because on line 24, it sees the closing for that statement block. It returns to line number 11. After that function call, it encounters the semicolon. That means line number 11 is done, goes to line number 12, and it outputs, now I am back in main. And then it encounters the semicolon. At the end of that line, it runs return 0. So that means we return something, in this case a 0, from out of main. We are done with main, and our program can end. So parameters and arguments are two sides of the same thing. An argument is where we refer to that data where it is being called from. So wherever we are making a call to our function, we have an argument. At our function, whatever we receive is referred to as a parameter. So even though it's the same data, even though it's the same data type, we refer to them differently because it's an indication of where in that transaction we are. Are we at the point where we are making a call, or are we at the point where we are receiving that call? It does make a difference. It feels like really parsed out, really specific language at this point, but the more you see it, the more you'll be like, okay, that's because I can actually make changes to the data here. That's because I can actually return like work that has been done to change those values. So it's important to understand that there's data as it exists when we call it, and there's data as it exists to where we receive it. So that is what is happening here in 6.4. And again, this starts on page 317, sending data to a function.